What's going on, people? Welcome to another live episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. And on today's show, I got a couple of my Off the Ball Network brethrens. I got my VP up in flames, Mo. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, bro? Hey, glad to get back on here and talk hoops with you, man. 100%.
For sure, for sure. And I got, I know he's gonna not like when I'm saying this, but I got TikTok superstar Jelani, what the game means to me podcast. Jelani, my guy, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. I appreciate you for having me on today, Mo. Good to see you again. Nice to be on another show with you as well. Like I said,
I think we
appreciate
lost Jelani.
the
Oh,
love.
Jelani, you're breaking in and out, Jelani.
Okay, you got me. I appreciate the love. I said that it cracks me up every time you say that, you announce that. But I'll take all the love I can get. We're not there yet. We're still working. But appreciate you for having me on for sure.
For sure, for sure, and I'm excited to get into this show. Obviously the NBA is back in full circle. We got the new year, and basketball is strong, and a lot of craziness in the league, right? A lot of blowouts, a lot of just crazy stuff. As obviously, COVID and all that, it was going to be crazy as is, but it seems like this year is this basketball season is very weird, right? We're
Mhm.
seeing the elite teams that we thought were elite teams struggle, and we're seeing teams that we might have not thought were going to be that good off to better starts than we thought. So,
Mhm.
before we get into what's the what's your take on the season so far?
The well, to go off of what you said, as far as some of the teams that we didn't have high expectations for, plain and simple, like the Cleveland Cavaliers, being
Yep.
at 4-2 right now, 20-point win against the Bucks, good win last night, against the Pacers. I think a lot of it has to do with, bro, if you look at the good teams, they've had way less of a break than these bad teams from last year. The Cavs hadn't played in what, 8, 9 months? Like they stopped playing in
Mhm.
March and haven't played it. So 9 months, these guys were itching to play. Where
Mm-hmm.
I think some of these, like the Lakers and the Heat and um, Boston, the Nuggets, like even teams like that who played late into the bubble, ultimately, bro, I just don't think they have the same. Like they kind of want to start later, and they've had less of rest, and they haven't had the urge. I think just some of it is more when I haven't played the game in 9 months, bro. I'm coming out there with fire, and I think that's what you're seeing is why a lot of these bad teams are actually pretty good, bro, because they had a lot. Like it was more exciting for the season to come back in December than it was for some of these teams that reached
Mhm.
deeper and had a deeper playoff run in the bubble, where some of these guys didn't even get into the bubble. And so I think that makes a difference.
Jelani?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off what Mo just said, it's pretty much that, like that, just that want to get back out on the court. Because even like I know we like kind of around our own home teams, we on Twitter and everything, just making sure we keep up with all that type of news. And I'm looking at Trey Young's tweets all the time. Like he's of course watching the boat, but he's like, I can't wait to get back out there. Same thing with the other younger guys, Cam, DeAndre, all those guys. Just honestly, they're just ready to be back out there on the court. So what Mo just said, like as we can see, like the team that we would think would be closer to the top. It's only 5 games in, of course, but teams that we think would be closer at the top. I just looked at the Western Conference final or Western Conference standings. The Nuggets are 1-4, like you just said. They exhausted all their energy in the bubble. The Mavs that had their struggles. Luka and has had his struggles a little bit. They didn't go too deep into the bubble, but they had them a lot of close, hard fought games throughout being there. So pretty much Mo just said, I mean, he put it in perfect terms, perfect words. Like you see these teams that we didn't think would get off to hot starts like the Cavaliers, Orlando, they were okay. They were in the bubble. They didn't, add too much or lose too much, but they was undefeated at a point before, 2 days ago. And then of course it's another team. I'm forgetting the name. Forgetting. But even my team, honestly, I know there was high hopes for them, but they came out and been playing a lot better than a lot probably would expect them to. So yeah, I mean, Mo just said it perfectly.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, it seems like there's a lot of blowouts this year, more
Mm-hmm.
than usual, right? And I looked up this statistic, and because I'm like, this why like this is more than normal, the amount of blowouts I've seen. So I looked up, I was like, let me see if it's just me, or is there something real to this. And I looked it up, and I saw that, and it was on the Athletic, and I saw that, blowouts from more than 20 points, 20 points and more are up by like 4%, when last year it was around like 8% of games that were 20 points or more in a game, where it's up to like 12.5%, where there's games that are 20 plus point blowouts. I mean, we saw this year, the Clippers lose by 51. Mo, your Miami Heat lost by what, 40 something? I mean, we've seen, a lot of teams just get blown out of the gym. The Knicks blew out the Bucks. you know, we're seeing a crazy amount of blowouts. So Mo, what do you think? What are you feeling about why we're seeing the amount of blowouts we're seeing right now?
Um, Once again, bro, I just think I think it's all reverts back to some of the rest teams have had as opposed to what other teams. Now, granted, like the Heat lose by 47 to the Milwaukee Bucks, who played in the conference semifinal in the bubble. But even like I don't want to say I still think they get blown out, but Jimmy Butler doesn't play with a hurt ankle. I don't know if it's really sprained, but like he doesn't play. I don't think he makes up 47 points. So I still think we lose by 20, 30. But, he didn't play. And then they come back the next game, but then they come back the next night. The same team that lost by 47 comes back and wins. So I just think a lot of it has to do with, like, I don't know if these guys are the most motivated right now, beginning of the season, especially for these playoff teams. Like these guys who, I can't say it now, but I want to say like the Heat are guaranteed to go to the playoffs for the most part. I mean, barring injuries and stuff, the Heat, the Bucks, the Lakers, the Clippers, like those teams are going to the playoffs no matter what happens the first month and a half. And another thing that people aren't paying attention to, there's most of us guys like us are, but you realize typically in December, bro, we're a month and a half into the season. These guys have played 25 to 27 games by the new year.
Mm-hmm.
It's the beginning of the season right now. So, I think some people are making measurements as if the season didn't just start. You know what I mean? Like, and so I just think that has a lot to do with it. But I think it all reverts back to some of these guys and their motivation of not playing in 9, 10 months. And some of these guys who just got done playing 6, 7 weeks ago and are trying to turn out here and really get motivated when, there's certain players and certain teams that like until All-Star break and beyond, it doesn't matter to them. They don't weigh, losses on the sixth game of the season as like, oh my God, our season is terrible. Like, I don't think Denver's over there panicking at 1-4. They know, bro, you have an MVP caliber player. They have Jamal Murray. Like, I don't think they're sitting there panicking. And that makes the difference. If Cleveland was 1-4 right now, I'd be like, oh, that's what we expect. But like I said, they have more of an itch and drive to play because they've sat for so long. And so I just think some of these playoff teams that are playing bad, I don't think they're panicking right now. It's early. Let some of the bad teams have their glory. But I also think, I know we're going to get into it, but there's a couple of these teams that are over playing a lot better than we thought that I think are going to keep it up throughout the whole season. So I don't think everybody is flukes. I definitely don't think that. But
Jelani,
Yeah,
what do you think is the blowouts? What's your reasoning behind all these blowouts? This early the season.
Yeah, I don't know, it's a mix because it's crazy, and it's crazy the type of blowouts we've been seeing, the type of team that's receiving these blowouts. Like, we was all watching football one day, and then the Clippers in the back of our screen by 50 to Dallas Mavericks, and we're just like, what's going on? And then I mean, I experienced one, like I was talking about Orlando earlier. I was in Florida, I had to watch that game. They got blown out by the Sixers to lose their first game of the season. So it's weird blowouts coming, weird angles by weird teams. But like you said, I think the motivation for certain teams to get back out there and just play. I think some of these teams, Baron, the Nuggets probably, I guess, since we were just talking about them a little bit. They lost key pieces, you know, specifically. Um, so I feel like that's the reason they could be struggling a little bit. They're, trying to get these new, like Michael Porter Jr., he has to step up big time with them losing Jeremy and Grant and Miles Plumlee and stuff like that. And then they got other rotational guys that played a little bit in the bubble, but wasn't obviously like key factors, key guys. So I think like them, there's other teams that's probably just figuring out their rotation, figuring out guys who they're piecing together. And that sometimes comes at at a cost of getting out or losing games or losing close games or whatever. So like for them specifically, I think that could be a really, overall, I think it could just be like that motivational piece, and then just teams figuring out their new rotation and guys that they're now just in their rotation and new to their team. Like there's certain ones I guess that have picked it up easier than others, been able to fit those pieces in easier than others. I know I'll keep talking about my Hawks, but with us, we just need to see how Clint Capella was going to play. With a defensive big, and then just surround Trey with shooters. And I feel like that's easier to put in place, not changing the offense much, but just adding pieces that do what they do best in order to win games versus like other teams. They may be adding new head coaches, new scheme, new rotational pieces that weren't playing as much before that now has bigger roles in play. So just things like that is probably, dedicated to why some of these teams are getting blown out. It might be outliers here and there. Like I said, with the Clippers, there's really reason, even though Kawhi.
I think we lost Jelani. But he mentioned the Clippers, right? Like they got blown out, but then they come back and they play good basketball. So like, what is like? It's hard to really figure out some teams because it's like, all right, which Clippers team is real? Yes, I know Kawhi was out and all that, but it's like still losing by 51. That's you can't tell me Kawhi is, losing Kawhi means you're that bad of a basketball team, right? That's just coming out flat. But I also think, just this just weird. There's just everything's weird. Like there's no fans. Like it's just the aspect, like you said, you're so used to this part of the season. You already got, we're in January right now. You probably what we got. They started in usually end of October. They got games in. We're getting ready for the All-Star break. And we can get a better feel of teams now. And a lot of teams have played 6 games maybe. Some teams have, like the Rockets have missed some games, and it's just in a weird environment right now. A lot of players thrive off that energy from the crowd, and not having that is just weird, right? And we've seen it in football, right? We got a nice feel of it in football and obviously in the bubble, but it's just weird going to the arena, like going to Madison Square Garden, and there's no fans. That's weird. That's just if you're accustomed to that, if you're like a Julius Randle who played at the Garden last year and knows that that you could feed off that environment, and now you go into an empty arena, it might take you a little bit longer to get your game going, right? You can't thrive off the energy of the crowd to get you back if you're down 15, 20 points, right? We all know the basketball is a game of runs, right? You can just like that, boom, you can be down, you can be up 20, and then it's a 9-point game, right? Couple threes, boom, the crowd, right? And they talk about that home court advantage, right? That crowd can get you back in the game, right? The swing, and it's like you don't have that now. So what is that? If you're down 20, you don't have that energy from the crowd to get you back in there. So now you could be down 20. Now we're seeing that 20 could lead into a 30-point, getting blown out by 30, and then 40, and then we've seen some 50-point. So I think that just that element of no fans is huge. That's why like home court advantage really doesn't mean anything in basketball, right? Especially knowing that the rules of basketball, there's no difference, right? As is, it's just you got home court, right? So if you got 4 games at home, you're gonna have the crowd. That's the advantage. That's not the case no more. So that's gonna be something I'm gonna be looking forward to. Is that we saw with the bubble, right? Miami, Mo, your Miami Heat benefited a lot because there's no crowd. So now you just poke on it and you just hoop. And we all know like especially role players on the road tend to struggle, you know,
Mhm.
and not to play freely. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that is. But as far as the blowout aspects, we're seeing a lot, and I think we're going to see more.
Yeah.
More. I think this is going to be a trend for this season, as long as there's, no fans or limited fans. Where some
Yeah.
teams have limited fans. I know the Tampa Bay Raptors, whatever you want to call them. The Toronto Raptors of Tampa Bay. If you want to
Mhm.
call them that, they had some fans, and I saw when they
Yeah.
played the Knicks, they had some fans. I think maybe, or I'm going to guess the Florida teams, have some fans because
Yeah.
Florida's restrictions aren't as strict as other teams. But
At
I think
Yeah.
we're
all.
going
They
to
had
see.
no
I think,
restrictions.
yeah,
Yeah.
at all.
They're
Florida.
wide open.
Florida is why they
Bro,
don't care
Yeah.
about anything.
I
We know
went
that.
back home. I went back home,
Mhm.
bro, and like coming from Cali, where we're still
Mhm.
shut down. It was
Yeah.
crazy to me to go to Florida and like the only thing is you're wearing a mask. They're
Yeah.
clubbing, they're going out, the bars are popping on the
Yeah.
weekend. Like you just have to wear a mask.
Bro.
That's the only thing about Florida is everybody
Yeah.
wearing masks. But other than that, it threw me off because I wanted to go to the Raptors
Mhm.
home opener against the Pelicans just because I'm like, yo, I could go to a basketball game. Like, I won't be able to
Mhm.
do this when I go back to Cali or even like, I'm not sure if Texas, when I moved to Texas, I'm not sure if they're having fans in stadiums right now. I know they are in football, but I'm not
I
sure
know
if
in
they are.
football. I don't know if Dallas. I haven't seen Dallas Mavericks. I don't know if Dallas
Yeah,
or San
Yeah.
Antonio has
I
fans.
don't
I have
think
to double
it's
check
it's
that.
only
But
like 5 or 6 teams. I think it's like the
Mhm.
Hornets, the Raptors, I think the Magic, and like 2 or 3 other teams are
Mhm.
having like limited fans. But I think the
Cleveland,
I
I
think
think too. I think Cleveland's
I think
allowed
I've
too.
seen fans in Cleveland, but what I
Yeah.
do think will be the difference this year than last year with the bubble situation, um, is home court advantage will matter, but not with the fan aspect. With there's a reason why teams play better at home outside of the fans. It's their gym. That's your gym. It's just like when you play AAU and you have a
Mhm.
gym that you play at a tournament at the gym you practice at, that's your gym. Like,
Mhm.
the ins and outs of the gym. But the difference will be travel. They didn't have to travel in the bubble. These
Mhm.
guys played every other night, but bro,
Great
as soon
point.
as you go to the game, you got to the hotel, you didn't have to worry about catching a flight
Mhm.
the next night and everything like that. So I think the travel will make a difference this year, and you will see some of these guys playing on their home court, and then having to
Mhm.
travel, that's going to affect the outcome like normal. Like, you know what I mean? That's the normal part of basketball in the playoffs. So that is going to have a factor unless there's a spike to where they decide that they're going to do the playoffs in a bubble again. Then
Mhm.
that could change. But if the playoffs are gonna go as is with them traveling like they are now, then there will be a difference, and it will have that regular playoff feel as far as traveling, and because that
Mhm.
plays a factor. No
Big.
matter what teams say, like no matter what people say, traveling plays a factor. The tiredness, after game two, we're getting on the flight that night and we're heading, if we're the Heat, we're heading to Boston
Mhm.
after game two. So the jet lag and having to get over that and turn around and get your body ready, do your regular regimen, post game regimens, and practice and get back ready. That makes a difference. So I do think
Mhm.
I think you'll see normal outcomes. And I'm a big time Heat fan, but I've said I think the Heat benefited the most
Oh, really? You like
from
the
the
Miami Heat,
bubble.
Mo? I didn't know
No, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't
But I'm
know
just
that.
saying, like I
Oh
think
man.
the Heat benefited the most from that bubble situation because
Mhm.
ideally that situation was built for a Jimmy Butler to be a superstar, a straight dog. It was just a go out there and ball. Who wants it more? And so I just think it was, you know, make Tyler Hero makes himself a big name on a stage because it's not a it's a big stage, but the finals weren't the finals. They didn't have
Mhm.
to go to LA and deal with that Lakers crowd who's about to win a championship. And it would have been 10 times worse playing at Staples Center this year
Yeah.
or this past year with the Lakers having a chance of winning a championship the same year that Kobe Bryant passed.
Yeah.
You don't think that gym would have been rocking?
Okay.
You think
Mhm.
a rookie would have been able to, like, my thing is, you think a rookie really would have been able to handle that? Like,
Yeah.
I don't. And it's not a knock on Hero. I don't think there's many rookies ever that would have been
Mhm.
able to handle that type of environment that you could have got. Or, to talk about Chris Nicks, bro, playing in Madison Square Garden is different. Like,
Mhm.
no matter what, bro, New York is still the mecca of basketball. Madison Square Garden, like that's of all the places to play, that's like playing in a part of history. Like when you step
Mhm.
on that court, there's some pressure because a lot of the stars they have great games there. It's just pressure to play on, you know what I'm saying, like the most glorified stadium in NBA history. So, but with no fans, and then it makes a difference. It's a different type of motivation for guys, and some guys are going to prosper from it, and some guys are going to take a step back from the fan aspect because, bro, there's nothing more than making a big play, dunking on somebody, looking in the crowd, and everybody standing up. Like, that makes a difference. Like, imagine the crowd when Terry Rozier dunked on KD. Like,
It would have been
Ooh.
imagine how
ridiculous.
hyped that play really was. Like, imagine how that stadium would have went. Like, so I just
Yeah,
think
it
that
would have
makes
got
a
loud.
difference.
Yeah.
That would have been crazy. Like, we were sitting on our couches like, oh, my God. Like, I remember my reaction. I was like, woo!
Yo.
So just
And Terry
imagine.
I was like,
and
KD, stop jumping.
And Terry Rozier, I mean, I'm sure one of you guys or myself are going to bring up Terry Rozier because he's off to a pretty good start. So
Yeah.
let's get right into our our team segment as far as teams that are getting off to good starts and cold starts. Which teams have surprised you, Mo, as far as getting off to a great start, and which teams have surprised you? Team or teams have surprised you that have gone off to a bad start so far in the season?
Um, I mean, I feel like there's one team we all are thinking of. So I'm gonna go with the Cavs.
Mhm.
It has to be surprising unless you're a Cavs fan, because other than that, you have to
Yeah.
be
I think it's
surprised that
surprising for
they're
Cavs fans
Yeah.
too.
yeah. But you have to be surprised with two things with the Cavs. One, you have to be surprised that they're 4-2 with a 20-point victory over Milwaukee. Um, Oh no, it was the Knicks that blew out Milwaukee. I lied. I got too mixed up. But you have to be surprised that they're 4-2. And it, like I said, coming off a Pacers team looks really good and looks like they have a guy who could be an MVP candidate. We'll probably get into him later, but you have to be surprised. And then the fact that you have a player who's not Kevin Love or Andre Drummond that looks like an all-star caliber guard in
Mhm.
Colin Sexton, like that has to be surprising to you. We knew how good he could be, but he also seemed like when he came into the NBA, it'd take him a few years, some development. But you knew what his like. I feel like he's at where we thought his ceiling would be, but a lot earlier than we expected. Like no, everybody should be surprised that Colin Sexton is playing this great. And it's not because you've seen what he could be. It's just the fact that he's hitting his ceiling a little bit early. Maybe this isn't his ceiling, but he's hitting it early. Like his progression is going, I feel like, a lot faster than anybody who graded Colin Sexton said. And, Chris, we talk about this all the time. I think it has everything to do with him moving from point guard and putting Darius Garland at point. I think that has everything to
Exactly.
do with it. But I mean, that has to be the surprise is Cleveland. Like, I mean, there's a few other teams, but mine is Cleveland being 4-2. With
Yeah,
Sexton looking like an all-star guard.
and they just beat Jelani's
Yeah. I was just about to talk about
Jelani's
that.
Atlanta Hawks, and like they're playing really good basketball. And you know what? They have a good mixture of young guys with some good vets, and they have size. Like Drummond's playing at a good level right now. Drummond is killing it right now, 17 and 14, whatever his numbers are. 2 blocks a game. JaVale McGee
Yeah.
is playing very good basketball.
Yes.
And we're so used to McGee, and Steven just brought it up. McGee he's playing really good back. And I think when we thought McGee getting traded Cleveland, it was just going to be like a throw in, like whatever, like he's just going to Cleveland because it was just a part of a throw in. But he's playing some good basketball, and he's not playing a lot of minutes, but he's still giving you 10 and 7. That's for playing 17 minutes a game. Like, that's good. And like you
It's
mentioned,
efficient.
putting Colin at the 2, which to me that's what he is. He is a scoring guard. He's not a traditional point guard. I think they try to make him into that, and that's just not who he is. And we've seen in especially over the last few years, we've seen teams implement more guard heavy lineups with 2-3. I mean, we saw OKC did last year, with Schroeder, CP3, and SGA. Like this could work. So now you put Garland, who's a last year was coming off the knee injury, right? So he just wasn't himself. Has a full training camp. I mean, it wasn't normal, obviously, with everything on, but he comes in not having to worry about rehab, right? Has a training camp where he's just, and they put him at the point and just said, "Do you?" And then they let Colin go play off the ball, no pun intended, and do his thing, you know. And look at he's hooping. He's averaging 26 a game, you know. He's killing it right now, you know. And I think that's a big factor in why, you know, they're playing good. And that's not even with Kevin Love being Kevin Love. You know, Kevin Love is not playing to, you know, I know he's banged up and on it, but he's only averaging 9 and 6 right now. But everyone else, Larry Nance is playing good basketball, and that's, you know, Isaac Okoro is missed time, but you know that's an up and coming rookie, and like I said, Garland and Sexton are the key to this, and I think that's why they've had their early, you know, impressive start so far for Cleveland.
Yeah, this not go too deep. Oh, no talking.
Oh, my fault. I had muted. I just was saying that Larry. I was just emphasizing how he brought up the Larry Nance point. Was like you look at the guys, you know, their all-star caliber players is Kevin Love and Andre Drummond. Like that's the names anyway. And we know what Drummond is. Like, I'm not surprised Drummond's playing the way he's playing. He's always played like that. He's just never got the love at center because he's that old school center, you know, bang back against the basket, you know, get the dirty work, get the rebounds, putbacks. But so I'm not surprised. I always have valued Andre Drummond. He never got enough love in his career for as good as he's been. But like Larry Nance Jr. playing great basketball for his role. Like it's just, you know, they're 4-2. Kevin Love's been hurt. He hasn't played good basketball when he's been in. So I think it's promising. When you have a young team like that, you got to think it looks promising because they show they're capable of this type of play. Even if they don't keep it up all season, they're showing right now they're capable. So it's got to be some of these young teams, you know, Cleveland, the Knicks, the Hawks, like those guys, like if whether they keep up where they're at for the rest of the season, which isn't likely. I mean, I think the Hawks can, but you know, like the Knicks and the Cavs, you gotta look and be like, look, bro, it looks real promising for the future. You know, it's not all about this year with some of those rebuilding teams, but all that young talent stepping up and playing to their capabilities. Like those two teams in particular is like I would look and be like, man, they're gonna be a playoff team in 2 to 3 years. And when I say a playoff team, they might make it next year, but I think in 2 to 3 years, that's gonna be a consistent playoff team keeping your, you know, I think the Knicks in 3 years we'll constantly see them in the playoffs, and they could be around that 4 or 5 seed range consistently, like a Miami Heat, Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference, where they're always going to get there 4 or 5 seed, maybe 6 one year, but it's a lot of up for these young teams that are showing how good they really are.
And Cleveland's playing defense too. And at the end of the day, you got to play defense, you know. So that's especially with the Knicks too. They play defense, so that's why we're seeing them, you know, early success with those teams like that. You know, young guys are playing better and then playing defense. At the end of the day, you still got to look. You got to play defense. You got to make stops, and that's what Cleveland's doing. So what's your team that's expected to be good, but they're off to a bad start?
I mean, there's a few. I'm gonna go with the Heat. You know, I got asked this question on the show last night, and I went with Miami Heat. So I'm gonna go with the Heat. And the reason why I say that is, as we can point out, you know, we've talked about the factors with teams like the Lakers and the Heat, but this is a team that just came off of playing in the NBA Finals. No matter what factors they played and took the Lakers to 6 games in the NBA Finals, they look exactly how what everybody said about them. Like they only did that because of the bubble. They look like that right now. And I know Jimmy's been hurt, but they look like they didn't belong. Like this doesn't look like a team that just came off the finals. Even with the Lakers losing a couple games, they've had their games where you're like, yeah, this is why we had them. This is why they're the title favorite. The Heat were some people's favorites to come out the East, even with the Nets. Some, like, you know, I think majority is the Nets, but there were some people that think like the Heat are the team to beat until somebody takes over their title in the Eastern Conference. But they look like typical Miami Heat fashion, bro. 4, 5, or 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, win a playoff series or two. But I definitely don't expect the Heat to be back in the finals. I'd be surprised this year. I would be surprised if they made the finals, but they have been disappointing because this is a team that just played for a championship that looks really bad.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler has, not to say he's disappointed, but I'm worried because I think we all saw his heroic performances in the bubble, right? And I remember watching that and saying that might affect going into next season. Like that's something that I'm really worried about. Oh, I got the background music going. I don't know what happened here. But I think that's something we worried about with Jimmy is that he put so much effort and played his heart out. And I'm
Literally.
like, this is going to affect him next year. It's going to, and I feel like it's we're seeing it because he's just not the same, and he's missed some times, and I don't know. I'm worried. I'm worried about it because they've already struggled even with last year, right? We all said, man, they still need a go-to guy, right? Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Butler literally has to give you everything in order to give you a 30-40 point game, right? And that's not something you want, right? You want someone to help him that can, that can score and take the load off Jimmy because you don't want that. You don't want him literally putting his body on the line just to give you 40 to give you a chance to win a basketball game. And I'm like, man, that's gonna affect them next year. And then as we saw that the season was starting quicker than we anticipated, I'm like, oh, Miami is going to be affected to me the most because they used the most energy. That run was a difficult run for them.
Yeah.
They battled. Even Indiana the first round, right? That's still a team that was hot, and that was a tough series, right? Then you go against
Yep.
Milwaukee, tough series, right? Giannis and them boys, and then you go to play Boston, playing against some dogs, and then obviously the Los Angeles Lakers to cap it off. So I'm worried. I'm worried about Miami because even Bam hasn't looked Bam yet. It's gonna be tough for Miami to repeat again as getting back to the finals, Eastern Conference champion. So yeah, I would say that they're definitely disappointing so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Jelani? Who's your most give me both your most disappointing so far and team that surprised you so far?
Surprising wise, I don't want to harp on the Cavs. Not really my surprise team, but I wanted to talk to some points that both of you guys did say, which was like obviously coming out to a 4-2 start. That's something we wasn't really expecting. I've been able to see Colin Sexton, of course, he's from the Atlanta area, so I've seen him play. He's always been a dog, always, like you said, that scoring guard. And I feel like that move to the two definitely helped elevate, that corporate them and just overall their team atmosphere at the moment. And like you said, they play defense. Like last night, I got to see them play the Hawks, and we were talking about a little bit earlier. They coming up a back to back. They just came from Brooklyn, being them by 20. Had to come back down here and then play another game against a team that's been playing well as well. And with them, Hawks just ran out of gas. They could not score in the fourth quarter at all, and that's when Colin Sexton got hot. I think he scored like 13. They ended up putting the game over the edge for them. So it's been really cool, I guess, to see them have the games that they've been having with their leaders. So it's like not being out, them having some pieces that they did. But it's not really a surprise. I know we talked about it a little bit before we got on, Chris, but I'm not surprised. But I'm just, I guess, glad to see them play well and be in play together. But the 76ers right now, I think they got the best record in basketball. At 5-1, it's not their time to somebody at 5-1. So it's really cool to see them play the way they've been playing. Like we said, everybody already knew, like last year, the team just wasn't constructed the greatest. Now they got shooters surrounded by those two guys, and it's just cool to see it, I guess, formulate so quickly and early in the season to where they're playing good basketball. Their shooters are hitting shots. Danny Green still has to, come into his own. I think he's like 21% from three right now. But overall, they're playing good basketball. And B, I think, leading the team 25, 26 a game. Simmons is doing his thing, almost close to a triple double average. I think it's like 13 and 9, 13 or something like that. And then Steph Curry, of course, everybody says his brother. Steph is each and every year he's been improving his game. So of course making himself like a little bit of a household name. So they're like not like I said, probably isn't surprised, but I just overall like the way they've been playing. And say just how quickly they've been able to play, I guess, at the level they are at the moment. I guess disappointing wise, I don't know if it's like super disappointed, but it's just super. We just don't know where they're at right now. And for me, it's like the Milwaukee Bucks. They're at 500 right now. They've had some good games. They've had games like you not to call out the Knicks, but getting blown out by 20 by the Knicks. Giannis on the bench is confused. It's just something that we're not used to, especially with that team. Last year, they were favorites to be going to the finals. This year, they're supposed to be somewhere in the 1 through 3, top of the East. Conference right now. To sign his extension just so they didn't have all the other guys feeling that pressure, the organization feeling that pressure for them to get him over that hump and get him to that finals. But I don't know if it's really paying off. I think it's probably what I spoke to earlier. Like obviously they made that trade, they got rid of Bledsoe, got rid of George Hill, they got rid of other pieces to where now they got Drew Holiday in the picture, and in the fold. Maybe it's just that camaraderie, they gotta build that chemistry, with him. Chris Middleton, I think he said it. He feels like Chris Middleton is maybe starting to ascend Giannis a little bit, if not already even at that point with that team. But again, I guess it's early in the season, but we're just gonna have to. It's gonna have to be proven later on in the playoffs because what we've seen is Giannis and them boys. They're good during the regular season. Playoff time comes, Chris Middleton kind of disappears a little bit. So, he's playing out over right now, overall. But just the team itself at 500, I know they've had a few tough games here and there. But like I said, just seeing them like lose so they did to the Knicks and then like come back and like win a good Christmas Day, even though it's against a struggling Golden State Warriors team. I'm just like I said, it might not be super disappointed, but I'm just like kind of trying to figure them out, and they're probably just trying to figure themselves out as well. So.
Yeah, Milwaukee is a weird team right now too. Like they play the Knicks, they get absolutely destroyed, and then they play the Clippers. Right, the Clippers, right? No, who they play? The Miami Heat, and they blow them out the gym. So I think that's what they're going to be this year. They're just going to be heckle and jive. We're just going to see. We're gonna see a team that's gonna be disappointed one night, and the next night they're gonna come out and they're gonna score 140 points and blow out teams. So they're definitely they're still a team trying to figure out. But for me, my most surprise, a team that's playing at just a high level right now, and Phoenix Suns, man, that's a good team right now. Like the CP3 trade has really benefited that team tremendously, and you could see how much he's changed everything for them. Like he's putting guys in the right spot. Everyone's benefiting. Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, Ayton. Everyone's benefiting from CP3 being there, and they're playing. I think they're giving up 98 points a game. I think that's number one in the league, or at least in the Western Conference. I mean, they're just playing tremendous. CP3, Mo, you talk about this religiously. CP3 does not get enough praise. And I saw you on a show last night, and you had mentioned this, and I want to bring it up. It's like you said, championships are always how we, especially in today's era, how we measure players, right? And every time we talk CP3, everyone brings up, oh, he doesn't have a championship. It's like, okay, like, all right, not everyone could win a championship, right? And it's like he's had some unfortunate stuff happen, but he's still arguably this generation's greatest point guard, right? And even though I think LeBron's a point guard too, so, but if you want to go traditional point guard, CP3 is arguably this generation's greatest point guard. He goes to every team, and what happens to every team he goes to?
They get better.
They get better, right?
Yep. They get better.
Clippers
They
got
are
better,
better.
right? He goes to the Hornets, right? Gets drafted to the Hornets, takes them, and they're a competent franchise, right? Like I said, the Clippers, right? Goes to OKC last year, a team that was projected to have the number one pick, right? A lot
There's
of
a 3% chance of going to the playoffs.
3%
3%
chance,
chance
right?
of going to the playoffs.
People have said, "Oh, he's probably going to get bought out, or he's definitely going to get traded." And guess what? He took them 7 games in the first round, right, last year in the bubble.
And they finished the 6th seed. They finished with the 6th seed. Like a team who has a 3% chance of going to the playoffs isn't even the last place playoff team
Exactly.
in the Western Conference.
finishing
And
above Portland, who was in the Western Conference Finals the year before.
Yep.
exactly in the Western Conference. And like that's my thing with Chris Paul is like I just think sometimes, bro, we evaluate certain players unfairly. Bro, everybody's not in the GOAT conversation or top 10 players of all time. That's, to me, when you start trying to do that, like if we're trying to put CP3 above Magic Johnson or Isaiah Thomas, then okay, we can start bringing up rings. But just to give him his respect and what Chris Paul has been since he's been in the league, like you said, bro, up until, I mean, we can have these debates about Steph Curry. Steph Curry's had a better career because he's won championships, but Curry's the one who changed the game at point guard. Before Curry came around, you had the conversation where like your Steve Nash's, Chris Paul's, Rajon Rondo's, Jason Kidd's. Those were point
Playmaking.
guards. A guy like Curry would have been a shooting guard, but he plays point guard because he was too small to be considered anything else. But he has a two guard game. He has even though he can score off come off the screens, but that's what he doesn't really make plays for his team. And the reason why I say that, he's not a guy who averages 7, 8, 9 assists a season for a career while being a point guard. Where Chris Paul is, I mean, I don't exactly know his career averages, but what I do know is Chris Paul has had multiple seasons averaging at least 10 assists. He's a playmaker. He slows the game down. Look at Houston. Look at how Houston offense changed and became efficient with Chris Paul. So that's my thing is like, bro, just to start talking championships with a guy like him, bro, we're not putting him in the conversation with Jordan and LeBron and Kareem. And we're not even putting him in the conversation with Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas. Like, I think he's the top 5 point guard of all time. No matter where you put him, I think you have to put him there. But like, I could see if I'm coming out and like overhype, no, he's the greatest point guard we've ever seen of all time. He's better than Magic Johnson. Well, then you're gonna, well, he has no championships. But just to take away from what Chris Paul has done in his generation because of no championships, that's when it becomes a crazy argument to me.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree. You mean you put it right in the head. Like he's a point guard. He's what you like. And I know like today's game is different, right? We don't really have traditional point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power. Like the game has obviously changed, but to me, point guard to me is still the one position where like I want my point guard to be able to set everyone up, right? Be able to find the wide open guys, get guys open, right? And unlike Dame Lillard is great at what he does, right? He's a scoring guard, right? He's more of a combo guard than he is a traditional point, right? Steph Curry. We all know all these guys, right? They're point guards, Russell Westbrook, they're point guards, John Wall, and all that. They're point guards, but that's because that's the position title, right? We all know they're more combo guards, scoring.
It's because of their height. It's because of their height.
Because of
their height makes them play point guard and go get a two guard who's 6'6". It seems like your shooting guards are average about 6'6", anywhere from 6'5" to 6'7" would make you a shooting guard. 6'4" and below would pretty much make you a point guard. I mean, look at D Wade. Like D Wade, even there was a year where he played point guard, like he was a starting point guard. They wouldn't have moved him to point guard, but he's 6'4". So he was at that. Like if I'm 6'4" and below, I'm pretty much a point guard. He was kind of an undersized, and Wade was probably like 6'3". He was like undersized shooting guard. So
who really couldn't
that's why they
shoot.
moved him to point.
Yeah.
Right. But he wasn't
At first,
like he was a shooter, but not a 3-point shooter.
Yeah,
He was but his game was so effective at that time because the mid-range mattered. Getting to the bucket really mattered. Guys weren't launching. You had 3-point specialists on your team that handled the load for 3-point shooting. If you couldn't shoot a 3, there wasn't going to be a knock on you because you built your team the perfect way where you got guys who are going to handle the load on the 3-point shooting. So D-Wade never really had to become an efficient 3-point shooter. You seen as he got a little bit older, he started becoming a better 3-point shooter. He never was like, oh, he's a good 3-point shooter, but he was competent. He could shoot the 3 and hit it. I mean, even when he was at his best, if he was hot, he could hit it. Like, he could do that step back 3 and hit you one in a clutch moment, but he still wasn't a 3-point shooter. And so that's the one thing, as much as I'm in love with today's game and today's players, and I think they're so much more talented than guys back then, and it's expected. I think in 15, 20 years, we're going to be saying the guys in 15, 20 years from now are way more
Evolution.
talented than the guys of now.
Evolution.
Exactly. So it's not a knock. Like, and you can always argue that, and it always gets brought up in the GOAT debate who played against the better players. But everybody got better. Like, that's what's supposed to happen. So 15, 20 years from now, we might have 10 Kevin Durant's in the league. You know what I mean? We have his capabilities. Like, so I just think, but with it, bro, I think everybody lost in the hindsight how good some of these players are because you're trying to compare every point guard to Steph Curry or Dame Lillard. When realistically, the last true point guards that are good are all the guys who are older. It's not a coincidence. Like Chris Paul, Rajon Rondo, even Ricky Rubio. I think like he's one of those, but I think Lonzo Ball falls in that. I think he falls in that category now. He's nowhere near Chris Paul or Rondo, but his style of play. I think he's a true point guard with the way he plays.
Good basketball this year so far, Lonzo.
Yeah, but I'm saying like he runs the offense, holds it down. Like that's the type of point guard he is. So I just think, bro, like that's always because the game changed, people forget about it. I think we all tend to do that when we're living in the evolution of something. It's recency bias. It's what I mean. But I definitely think Chris Paul just doesn't get enough. And I'm not saying he needs all time, but he doesn't get enough respect for what he's done for this generation. Like, I personally think he's the greatest point guard of this generation, of the since 2000. I think Chris Paul is the best point guard we've had, especially when he came in what, 05, the year after LeBron and them. So for the past 15 years, bro, I think he's been the best point guard in the NBA. We have arguments and well, if we want to go the newer route, we'll go Steph Curry or whatever. But I think Chris Paul, because he's the last. Him and Rondo and those guys, they're the last of what we're going to see true point guards really being. We're not going to see those type of point guards anymore. It's changed too much. We're too deep. We're 6, 7 years deep into three-point shooting taking over the whole NBA. So there's no really going back, which is okay. But you do got to appreciate those guys coming from that era where your point guard ran your offense. Your point guard probably had the highest IQ on the team. Your point guard knew he could dribble at the top of the key and point guys to where they need to be to set up a play. You don't see that anymore. So that's it about Chris Paul. I'm glad we all agree. So it's not an argument.
Yeah, I
was
we on
arguing
the
about
same
it
page
last night, but we're all on the same page about where Chris Paul, his place in history. I just don't want championships to ruin his legacy. He has a legacy, but it's not a championship legacy. So I don't want, he's not going to finish with a ring. If Chris Paul wanted to finish with a ring, he would have got traded to the Lakers. If championships at this point mattered to his legacy, to him personally, he would have went to a true championship contender this year. The Lakers wanted him. LeBron wanted him. So I think ever since he missed out on that trade to LA, I think that changed his mindset on what he wants out of basketball. Like, I really think that affected what he wants out of basketball.
The Lakers, that might have been better for him that he didn't go to the Lakers. And in a crazy way, like everyone thinks, all right, him and Kobe would have worked, but Kobe was still a ball dominant player. And I don't know if that would have worked as far as getting a championship. Like, obviously he didn't win one with the Clippers and that, but I don't know if that works 100% with Kobe.
I think it works with Kobe, and the reason why. What was that? Was that 2000 and what year was that? The 08?
I'll look up.
Was that before
the trade got denied?
It was like 09, 10.
It was right before
08,
Kobe,
09,
like
somewhere in there.
So I think it would have worked, and I think Kobe would have put aside a little bit. He would have had to put aside too much because Chris Paul would have made
2011.
Okay.
2011.
And why I think it would have worked is because I think in Kobe's mind, there was a reason why, I'm pretty sure he had everything to do with Dwight Howard coming to the Lakers and then getting that front office to try and pull off that trade for Chris Paul. Kobe was chasing Jordan. So I think if Kobe had to take a step back, and he's one of the greatest basketball minds ever. Him, LeBron, Jordan, even Chris Paul, Magic, like those are some of the greatest basketball minds ever. And Kobe was chasing to be better than Michael Jordan. And so go down, have more championships. He wanted 7. You know, the same way we're saying LeBron is doing that now. Kobe did. He may not have been as vocal as LeBron, but we all know Jordan was his idol and he wanted to be better than his idol. As much as it meant everything to be a lot like Jordan, he wanted to go down and be considered better. And I think with having Chris Paul, if he looked at him and be like, man, I got to adjust just a little bit and let Chris Paul do his thing, but it's going to result in championships. Kobe would have adjusted for championships. I will say that. People can say he's selfish and whatever, but for championships, for winning, Kobe was a winner first. And that's why it was so hard, and a lot of people didn't get along with him, teammates wise, was because he was never a bad teammate, but winning, he would never treat you or baby you at the with giving up winning for it. Oh, I want him to like me. Kobe, I'd rather win than be liked. You'll like me after we win this championship. So I think he would have taken a step back and did what he needed to do to win the championship, and that's why I think it would work. And he would have. I think Chris Paul, Kobe, and Dwight Howard would have never fell out. I think Chris Paul would have been the mediator for that. You know, that tandem.
He could have.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't want to say for sure it would have. We'll never know. But I think Chris Paul could have been the mediator for that Kobe and Dwight Howard situation. And, you know, I mean, that would have been a hell of a pick and roll and dishing Kobe for an ISO. Like, that would, bro, that would have been so good.
Well, at this point, I think Dwight's already in Houston. I think Dwight's in Houston already at this point. And I think he went to Houston at this point. But, I mean, they still have Pau Gasol. It could have worked. It could have worked, but Kobe was also on the decline too. So it would have been interesting to see how that would have worked. And he may have looked at his career at this point and be like, all right, you know, maybe I need to have another dude that could help me out and try to get that another ring. So, I mean, it's all hypothetical. We'll never know, but you know, it's one of the greatest non-trades in NBA history. But it would have been interesting to see. But CP3 needs his flowers because he's great. And look at what we're seeing 100%. Now with Phoenix. He's a big reason why. And it's crazy how Phoenix, that bubble, man. If there's we talked about Miami benefiting from the bubble, even though Phoenix didn't play in the play-in game, they benefited maybe more than Miami did in the long run.
They didn't lose the game. Like we all felt it wasn't fair that they didn't get a chance because they went 8-0.
Of the Suns going into that, it was like, all right, Devin Booker, is he on the trade block, right? We heard a lot of trade rumors with him. Like, is Monty Williams going to be one and done, right? Is DeAndre Ayton, oh my God, they took him over Luka, right? And there were so many things that going on, and then they go undefeated in the bubble, and everything changes. Now they're like, okay, instead of being sellers or like maybe James Jones was on the hot seat, right? He may get fired as GM, right? Makes them, and then they have the bubble run, and then that makes them like, okay, maybe we should be buyers, and maybe we should go after this. And boom, they went after it, and look at it; it's benefiting so far in the early season, right? So it's definitely
Chris Paul means wins, like, and it's not Chris Paul doesn't bring a championship, but Chris Paul brings victories. He brings better. He makes players around him better. Outside of LeBron James in this generation, I think Chris Paul is the second best player as far as when you categorize who makes their player around them better.
It's him and LeBron.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Mikal Bridges is better. Devin Booker is taking – he was already progressing. We know what Devin Booker is, so I'm not going to give how good Devin Booker is to Chris Paul, but he took a next step. DeAndre Ayton is not looking like a bust that some people were thinking he could be. You know, so there's so many guys like especially
Carter,
Mikal
Cameron
Bridges,
Payne, like all these guys.
Cameron Johnson. You know, Cameron Johnson like shooting the ball the way he is. It's not a coincidence that he has a point guard that's going to get him the best shots. So I think it has everything to do with Chris Paul being there, bro. He elevates guys around him. It may not lead to a championship, which is fine. But when guys leave, when Chris Paul leaves, these guys are going to be better. SGA is going to be a really good basketball player for a long time because he played with LeBron James. I mean, not LeBron, with Chris Paul. Like a lot of those guys, when Chris Paul leaves,
Phoenix, was still mad that they had to trade SGA and get Paul George. He's still upset about that.
Exactly, but then you look at it and like his improvement and him being on the map, I think has a lot more to do with playing alongside Chris Paul. Because what Chris Paul does is he takes these young guys and he delivers knowledge.
Jay Crowder.
He puts what he does, like he puts all his into getting everybody better. He's that vet to have in there. I think Chris Paul could become a coach later on, whether it's a player development type of guy or he
Well, I think he has
goes up
his
the
he has
ranks.
an AAU team, right? And he has his own
Yeah, he
academy.
has.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
too rich to be a
Yeah,
coach.
both of
He's too rich to be a
them.
Yeah, but I very well think he could. I think maybe,
Nah, he's too hot headed, bro.
he
He'll be
is a
butting heads
hothead.
of point guards.
He is a hothead, and he'll be that guy, later on, where they don't make him like more Chris Paul, and he's still
Mm-hmm.
gonna be trying to teach guys to play the way he
Teach him.
played
Yep.
basketball.
He
So
played. Yep.
yeah, I could see that.
One of those OGs.
And guys don't look at the game the same way that he looks at it. So, and that's why we're like, not to get off top, but that's why we don't see a lot of like Hall of Fame level players become head coaches or have success, because they see the game way different. So the way they see the game, and then they're trying to teach that, and they're wondering like, why doesn't he see what I see? But that person's just not at that level, right? They just don't. They're either too young, or they're just not. They're just not at that level. So, like Magic Johnson, when he was a head coach, he was probably telling them, "This is what you got to do," blah blah. And they're like, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm not 6'8" and I'm not." And I can't I don't see the game the way you can. So, and that's why I was interested when Steve Nash took over, because I'm like, Steve Nash is I mean, obviously he has Kyrie, so that helps. That makes life easier, so you don't have to teach him I'm sure he could teach him some things, being more of a playmaker, but still Kyrie's Kyrie, he's one of the best in the game, so that makes it easier. But seeing CP3 as a coach, a lot of technicals and a lot of fights. He's gonna fight. He's gonna fight his own player. I mean, he almost
a lot of ejections.
He's a lot of ejections. So I mean, that's definitely but he is a good mentor. He's and you could see the Suns just how good they're playing defensively too. Man, I know he's older and all that, but he's got them boys playing defense at a high level. I think that, like I said before, they lead the league in defense, points allowed. Like, they're playing good defense, and I think this is for real. I had them as a playoff team. I believe I had them as a seed, and I could have just underrated them, and they might be better. And they may be on that. We might be seeing something special in Phoenix. So it's definitely fun to watch. And like I said, I'm rooting for CP3. He's one of those guys where I don't think, no matter if you like him or not, I think you want to see him win a chip. He's one of those guys. You don't want to see him go his whole career and not win a chip. And I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him a lot, because he's one of the best to ever see. And we're gonna miss him when he's gone. Like, and that's another thing. We appreciate these guys, because a lot of these guys, LeBrons, CP3s, Melos, it's almost even KD's 33 years old. Like, sooner or later, these guys are gonna be gone, and we're gonna be like, damn, should appreciate them a little bit more. So CP3 is definitely, he's playing at a high level, and I think the Suns are going to keep it going. So let's talk about players now. And like I said, we talked about CP3 a lot, but let's talk about players that are off to good starts that you like, and guys who are off the struggling starts that's surprising you. So Jelani, give me a guy who's struggling that you wouldn't expect to be struggling, and give me a guy that off to a hot start that you didn't see either.
It's a lot of guys, I guess, that can be named both ways. Personally, me, I'm looking a little bit at our fantasy teams. I know one guy maybe had a little bit of a weird spot. He probably not getting much national attention for it. Like, I mean, he's struggled at times in games, but Jamal Murray. But I just, I account that all to just coming off of the bubble. Exerting so much energy, putting that team on his back, him and Joker. So he hasn't, again, I've been saying their names, they're 1-4 and all that, not having the greatest start. But he's struggled, pretty mightily at times in games. I know, like I said, I have him on fantasy teams, so I've been specifically looking at him because I'm trying to move him around here and there. But he's been out, he's been hurt a few games. Again, probably coming off the bubble, quick turnaround start. Not the greatest thing. He had a lot of games where he scored under 10. So he's been struggling a little bit. Luke, I know, has been struggling some. He's been getting frustrated. Besides, I think, like the Clippers game and maybe another game, struggled a little bit overall. I think he's just frustrated with how things are going. And another guy struggle. I mean, those are the two that I can think of right now off the top of my head that I've seen that's like struggling. I've been like just a little bit perplexed as to why. But like I said, our conversation today kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. Both teams obviously were in the bubble. They exerted a lot of energy, had a lot of very important games, and these two specific guys had a lot of that weight on their shoulders in order to bring their teams to the promised land. So those are two that I have struggling. Ascending wise, has been playing really, really great. I'm going to go one with one of my homers, Trae Young. He's had nice start to the season. He's had a good amount of 30-point games. I think 2 or 3 double games. Sabonis, Indiana. I know I know one game he gave your team the visit, but the next game y'all shut him down. So
Lock them down,
locked him
damn.
down. So Sabonis, he's like I think Mo said earlier, he's looking like an MVP candidate earlier on in the season with these first 5-6 games. So no, those would be I guess my two that struggle and two that's kind of sitting there has been playing really, really good basketball. I would say Kevin Durant, but I think we were kind of expecting it, but still had a little bit of like kind of wincing a little bit because he is coming off an injury and everything, but he's been he's had good rehab. He's had a lot of time off. But I got to see him play the Hawks those 2 games, and he got whatever shot he wants, and he just gets to the lane, pulls up. He's just that guy. So I didn't want to say his name because I feel like we all just knew he was going to be kind of back to his old way. So.
Yep, for sure. Okay, KD's back, and
Yeah.
I mean he's looking like KD for sure. Mo, who's your guy?
I ain't gonna spend too much time harping on, because we've hit so many guys. We've kind of been having this conversation throughout. But I'm gonna agree with Jelani on Jamal Murray. That was who I was gonna say.
Yeah, he's
Um,
struggling.
and the reason why is because he was a guy I had a lookout on. Him, Michael Porter Jr., T.J. Warren, Tyler Hero. Those guys were on my what I would call run it back list. Everybody who made names for themselves and really balled in the bubble, bro, run it back. Like, let's show me that you weren't just a product of the bubble. So, like, those guys, all those guys I have my eye on, like, bro, you got to run it back before I give you. We know Jamal Murray's good, but he was being called Canadian Jordan. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so just that the exchange of 40-point games he had and that going bucket for bucket with Donovan Mitchell. I just all those guys were on my running back list, and right now he doesn't look that great. T.J. Warren doesn't look like what we were giving him credit for in the bubble, but I think Jamal Murray was a guy you really had to look at because he had potential. Like, he's the guy that T.J. Warren made a name for himself, but nobody expects T.J. Warren to be an all-star, where Jamal Murray is one of those future of the league guys. So, yeah, I'm going to go Jamal Murray. And then I don't – it's not Trae Young for me as far as exceeding expectations because, to me, Trae Young is a superstar. Like, he's going to be a superstar. I can't give him that label. He hasn't done it long enough, but he's not doing anything that I couldn't see him doing. The way the Hawks are playing, I think that as they're playing as a team, I think that's why a lot of people will put Trae Young on there. But as far as his performances, there's nothing I'm surprised about. He could have a 50-point triple-double. Yeah, he could have a 50-point triple-double, and I wouldn't be sitting there like, oh, man, Trae Young did that? Like, you know what I mean? So, but I would really say Kyle Kuzma. As weird as that is to say, I'm not a fan of Kuzma at all. Like, I don't think he'll ever reach the potential that everybody had him as. I still don't. But the way he's been able to fit this year, he's had a few really good games, and he's fitting perfect. Like, it seems like he finally done found his role with LeBron James, because there were a lot of questions. I mean, bro, we thought he might get traded last year. We thought he might get traded this offseason. Like, he probably was like number 1 or 2 on people's list of players you think will get traded. He was in a lot of trade rumors last year. So for him to play the way he played, it looks like he found his role playing with LeBron and AD. Now, I think the reason why is because he's not a third option. And Dennis Schroeder coming and being a solid third option for the Lakers puts Kuzma at like that fourth or fifth option with also having Montrezl Harrell. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I think if Kuzma's the fourth or fifth best player on your team, you got a great team.
You're
But
solid.
it's when
Yep.
you were looking for him to be the third option, I think that was the problem. And so, I mean, the way he's been playing great. Looks like he found his role. So that's my biggest thing with him is if he's considered your fifth, he's probably the Lakers' fifth best player. You have to have a really good team if Kyle Kuzma is your fifth best player. So I've been really impressed with how he found his role. And I think it's not as much as he learned to play with LeBron James, but I think the load has been taken off with Dennis Schroeder playing really good basketball, Montrezl Harrell playing good offensively, Mark Gasol being able to take over with that second as far as creating plays. All Kuzma has to do is the only thing he really can do, and that's get buckets. He can't
Buckets.
score. So that's all he has to do. That's his role now. Nobody's expecting it to be LeBron, AD, and then Kuzma. I think Schroeder is that third option. I think Harrell is probably the fourth option offensively. But I think night in, night out, it could be Harrell looks like the fourth option one night, or Kuzma is the fourth option. But with him being dropping down on the totem pole, I think that's benefited him a lot.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure, for sure. And for me, there's a lot of guys who are surprising, both good and bad, right? And we're seeing that a lot. But guys that are surprising that are playing such good, and I wouldn't say surprising, but Colin Sexton. We talked about Colin before. Like, just it's not just that he's scoring; he's averaging 26 a game because I that doesn't shock me, but it's just his efficiency. Like he's he's shooting 55% from the field. Now I don't expect that to hold up for the whole year. Like, but if we're talking about just right now, that's really good. That's really good for a guard who's 6'1". Like we don't see 6'1" guards, who are efficient like that. So his start is good. Jaylen Brown to me is another
I was
one.
gonna say Jaylen Brown too.
Talk about efficient. He's shooting like 56, 57.
Crazy. Yeah.
And he's hitting, and this is a perimeter player we're talking about. So like he's doing it on both sides of the ball. So like he's averaging 27 and a half. He's another player. Like we just talk about guys who just keep getting better and better
each and every year. Yep.
And a lot of people, especially like 2 years ago, I was like, man, I think Jaylen Brown is what he is. I think he might be because there was a point where he was stagnant, right? He was just, all right, he's going to be a 18 to 20 point guy. Maybe he'll average 21, but that's what he is. Like, and remember we all like, who's Jason Tatum? And all, I mean, he's playing better than Jason Tatum right now. Like,
yeah.
So, and he's playing just tremendous basketball. And I think his play can keep up with Colin. I think is going to come down a little bit to reality. Like it's going to come down to points and efficiency, but he's killing it. I mean, and Christian Wood too is another one. Like,
I wanted to make sure like if you didn't bring his name up, I wanted to make sure like we can't talk great starts and stuff and not bring up Christian Wood.
Yeah,
he went to the perfect situation though. Like I talked about this earlier. I was like, I don't think he could have fit a lot of teams, but the minute I heard it was Houston, I was like, he might unlock, and we're seeing it right now. He's another one, efficient as heck, right? 24 and 11, something like that. Like he's exactly what Houston needed, and I think he fits perfect with what their style is, especially with James Harden. I mean, it's crazy to think that he was on 5 teams before this. He was on a different team every year. Like it's crazy how like. And somebody mentioned this before, and I was like, wow, it's kind of reminds me of Ben Wallace, not as the player, not the type of player, but the career arc, where Ben Wallace was on a bunch of teams, and then he finds the right team, like Chauncey Billups too, right? Chauncey went, a bunch of teams, and then he finds the right team, and then boom, he just explodes. And I think this is what we're going to do with Christian Wood, where we're going to look at that contract and be like, that's it?
Damn.
He might be an all-star this year, and he's making what, $13 million a year?
Yep.
I mean, there's guys who are 10th guys on the bench who are making $13 million. And then we see guys making 30 plus that are like, I mean, I'd rather pay Christian. I'd rather give Christian Wood that than you.
Yep.
And I think it's impressive what he's doing, and that's definitely the bargain of the offseason. I think it was like 3 years, 41. Yeah, 3 years, $41 million. There's a lot of teams that are looking back on the free agency and like, damn, We gave this guy 80, 90, 100, and we could have gave Christian Wood 3 years, 41, and we would have got just as much, if not more production. He's another guy that's just ascending, and I think it is going to continue because it seems like he's finally getting his opportunity where, last year we saw it a little
Yeah.
bit in the group, but it was kind of weird. Like, all right, is this real or is just because he's just getting a few more minutes, and he's just, but it seems like so far it's real. And another guy for me is Julius Randle, biased a little bit, but he's definitely taking his playmaking to another level. But guys disappointing. You guys mentioned Jamal Murray has been Donovan Mitchell. He's been off. He's shooting like 35%, only averaging like 19, 20 a game. It's not and we talk about the bubble, right? Are those guys product of the bubble? That's and I said that with Jamal. Like Jamal was a guy he came into the bubble, and I was like, I'm waiting to see him take that next step. He had that big contract, and I'm like, all right, let's see it. And we saw it, and then I'm like, all right, let's get to the season where obviously there's no fans, but you're gonna travel. We're gonna get back to traveling and all that, and I haven't seen it yet. So those are guys that are definitely disappointed so far. But I expect those guys to get back into form and hoop at the level that we should see them hoop, because those guys are really good. But yeah, those are just some surprises this so far in this early season for sure. But it's been a crazy start to the year so far in the NBA, and I'm sure it can get even more crazier.
Yeah,
for sure.
We're not done yet.
No, your Hawks too. I want to talk about, and I know tomorrow the Hawks play the vaunted New York Knicks.
Yes.
Right now, playoffs. If the season ended now, the Knicks are in the playoffs. Yes, I'm saying it. And I think we might be doing a show with the Hoopers tomorrow, and so I'm excited about that. So we can chop it up to a pregame with that, and Edgar too. And so
I don't want to watch that.
Well, you're going.
I'm gonna take. You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? I've already told you. Between you and Edgar, bro, y'all made me pay attention to the Knicks way more than I have in my 25 years of life.
Yeah,
I've never paid attention to the Knicks. I've never heard as much about the Knicks, but now I see the Knicks all over my Twitter feed. And guess what? It's either Chris or Edgar retweet Knicks. I'm like, oh my god, bro. I'm like, God, I can't stand it. They might become the Raiders. They might become the Raiders to me. I never had a problem with the Raiders, but I never had a problem with the Raiders until I met a couple of homeboys that love the Raiders. Now I hate the Raiders. I think I'm about to hate the Knicks.
Everyone hates the Knicks.
I never really hated the Knicks though. Like there was never no. Like I never had no reason to I never had no reason to just like, bro, I don't like the Knicks. But it wasn't even that. It was like, bro, I've always been a fan of Melo. So I love Melo. So when Melo went to the Knicks, like I did pay attention. Like, bro, I want to see Melo prosper. He got the money. They had that J.R. Smith and Mon Shumpert team, Amari Stoudemire. Like I wanted to see. I knew I didn't want to see him win a championship because then that meant they would have beat my Miami Heat. But I wanted to see, and I think they were one of the best matchups for the Heat. Every time they played each other, that was like, it seemed like the Heat might have met their match for some reason. Sometimes it's not the better team, but it's just matchups. Basketball is even a game all about matchups. I think the Knicks had tried to build their team to match up against the Heat. So I never really had a reason to hate them.
Why are you bringing back bad memories?
I'm just saying, like, I do think that they were built. But the team that kind of built it successfully, even though they never won, was the Pacers. Like the way the Pacers built their team, like when they played, it started becoming like the Heat Pacers started becoming a rivalry in the conference finals. So, but I mean, it's almost like we all hate teams that our friends love because you have to deal with them when they're good. So it's one of those like if the Knicks end up being good, I don't think I'll be able to take it.
I still hate those teams, even though you love them. Still hate them.
Yeah, but you're supposed to like. The thing is, you're not supposed to love the teams I love because then that means I'm happy, and it means there's a high possibility you're not. You're supposed to hope, like you should hope Alabama blows the doors
Mm-hmm.
off Ohio State, so you can talk trash to me. What's not gonna happen? But that's
I can't
just
talk trash though. Like when we get to that, I can't because my team has been irrelevant since the
Mm-hmm.
2003 national championship. So
Yep.
yeah. But when it comes to
talk too
that,
much
you like
trash.
yeah. But you always know in situations you could go back and be like, you could be the salty guy when they're talking. You
Mm-hmm.
guys talk bad about Ohio State. I can be like, well, where was your team at? It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Your team lost tonight, brother. Like
Yep.
your team
Just
lost tonight.
baiting.
Y'all are the topic of
Yeah.
conversation. Don't worry
My
about us.
team's
Exactly.
won one bowl game since 2008.
Like with the Cowboys. Like you know what I mean? Like, hey, we
Oh,
lost,
that team, I'm always
but
gonna get on.
Yeah.
Rob
That's
and
the
them are
one
gonna
team I'm
be.
always gonna get you on that.
I'm trolling Rob and Chris
Mm.
tonight if Washington lose to the Eagles. And you could be
Oh
like, well,
yeah.
y'all blew it. Guess what? We're not
What?
topic of conversation right now. You guys are.
Yep.
Especially
You're
going
the
against,
primetime game.
a bunch of backouts for
Mm-hmm.
Philly.
Yeah, and you're the primetime game. You're the Sunday night
Yep.
flex
Sunday
game.
night.
Not hey.
Yep.
Exactly. We go all on for that. But yeah, with the Knicks and all that, but they're surprising so far. They're one of those surprising teams so far. So they're
Yeah.
playing good. But the Hawks, I love their team. I love. I know you guys lost to
I'm
the Cavs,
loving it.
but
Yeah.
those games against the Nets, especially the
It's
first one, that
Mm.
144 to whatever 142, that
One.
was a hell of a
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And you guys have just a fun roster, like and a roster that's flexible as far as potentially making a deal. Where you got
Mm-hmm.
John Collins, who you didn't obviously
Yeah.
he didn't
I'm seeing it
resign.
so much.
He's a potential player
Mm-hmm.
that I mean you could be like, all right, whatever player you want to target, you have a piece that people would love. And John
Mm-hmm.
Collins, like that's a 22 and 12 10 guy,
That's a
right?
double walking. Yep.
Double double, like, and it's crazy because Obi Toppin, obviously the Knicks drafted him, and I'm like,
Mm.
and people started comping him to John Collins, and I'm like, okay, and then I started watching more John Collins, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see the game. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
they play no defense, they play zero defense, which is
Yeah.
they both fit that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but the offensive games is very similar, and I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but John Collins, he could be. I mean, I don't know what the Hawks are going to do as far as he's a restricted free agent this year,
Mm-hmm.
and will they match any offer because he's probably going to get 4 years, 100
Yeah.
to
He's gonna
120
get
million
something pretty
dollars,
big.
and will the Hawks match it? You know,
Yeah.
because obviously we know they have Cam Reddish, Harter,
Mm-hmm.
Hunter. We got a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Nick Okamo they still have.
Mm-hmm.
That's the rookie. We haven't really seen much of him, but it's like Hawks got a lot of pieces and
Mm-hmm.
pieces that can lead to making that next big piece that could take them to that next level. So, what's your thoughts on the Hawks and everything they're doing and how they're handling the whole situation with John Collins?
Yeah. Overall, like I've been really impressed with the start. Like I said, I love what they did in the off season. I knew it was going to be a big year for us. There was always noise, or it was noise coming into the season that we should be a playoff team. And, take that next step. I'll hit on the John Collins situation before I talk about the other stuff. Like you just said, I think he plays the best defense that he can possibly play. I guess if that makes any type of sense. I feel like he sometimes
He
has to
knows
play
where to
five.
be. He just doesn't
Yeah,
have
yeah, he did
the
exactly.
foot
Yeah,
speed and the lateral quickness to
yeah,
get to be in a good. But he knows
yeah.
it's like what Obi like it was same thing. Like when he's coming
Mhm.
out, it's like he knows the spots where to go. It just he
Yep.
doesn't have the elite
He just
lateral
does.
quickness
Yeah,
and all that
exactly.
for
It
what.
doesn't affect the play as much, but he's always like there in the right spot or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like I don't know. Like him and Trey, like they just got that chemistry. They've been boys ever since Trey got drafted. They just both been in the same systems, like that pick and roll style. Like they just always know where each other's at, and they just play really well together. So I think I do think they match it this upcoming off season because what the talk was coming into this year and probably the talk going into next year. It's like we had a good amount of money, we had a good amount of cap space. Obviously, a lot of people signed extensions that were supposed to be big names going to free agency next year. So it, I guess it depends on what we do for this year, like how everything plays out. If we make the playoffs, where we kind of are seeding everything, how guys are playing. If we do make a trade, before the trade deadline or whatever. But I think the diminishing big names of free agents that's possibly out there for the game next year. I think
There is
depending
none.
on if he continues to, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If he continues to play the way he plays now, like the only one I can think of right now is going to be Kawhi because he decided not to commit further on. But more than likely, I don't think he's
Yeah, I think he'll come back
coming to
eventually.
Atlanta. But anyway, I think match. Yeah, exactly. So I think they'll match. I'm hoping they do. I've been liking to see his. I've seen his progression ever since he's got drafted, and I feel like he's improved every single year. Like I say, he's like a double walking. I think with the additions of Clint Capella, Okongwu when he's healthy and is coming into the fold, and then Nate McMillan being added to our head coaching staff, I think the defense should start to improve. Like I think defense is hard to improve in general because everybody's just so skilled and they're able to score so skillfully nowadays. And like I said, sometimes you have to put that 5 and he's undersized a lot. So hopefully
Mhm.
somehow, some way, like with those defensive guys and defensive minds around him, maybe that defensive side improves. But overall, I think they should keep him. They should match whatever offer he gets next year. Because I think we'll have the room and space or whatever. But in general, I'm loving this team. I'm loving, like I said, Trey's playing the way he's been playing. Just surrounding him with more shooters, and we're still missing guys, especially defensive guys. Yeah, Chris Dunn, he's gonna be big for us, I believe. Especially if they play him and Trey, they'll put him on the dominant ball handler or whatever. Kongwu, he hasn't played yet. I think he'll be big for us defensively, as well. Maybe like him and John Collins, John won't have to play the 5, and then also other guys that I've tweeted before. Solomon Hill has been a key addition that I wasn't really seeing the vision before, but he's been a real key veteran piece for us.
Mhm.
Defensively and offensively, he's timely. He hits timely buckets, timely threes. He also calms everybody down when he's typically in with like the second unit and like younger guys like Herder, or Brandon Goodwin, people like that. And then, like I said, defensively, he gets the guys rolling pretty much. Like he's that veteran leadership, and I didn't even realize he was only 29, but he's that veteran leadership to kind of get them going when they're looking like kind of sluggish or it's like a few turnovers here or there. He gets them back on the right page when he's with that second or even third unit. So overall, I'm liking the progression of this Hawks team. I know they did lose to the Cavs last night, but I kind of contribute that to playing back to back and playing 2 hard games against the Brooklyn Nets. I would probably think it's going to be the number 1 seed. So it's going to be really interesting to play your Knicks team tomorrow. Like I told you off air that I'm just excited to see the Knicks in general. Because like Mo just said, all I'm seeing on the timeline is Knicks stuff. I got to keep reading about all this Knicks stuff, keep reading about Julius Randle,
Yep.
RJ, got to read about
MVP Julius
Quickly,
Randle.
Obi. Literally, I know y'all whole roster now. It's ridiculous. So it's like I'm excited to see how y'all play. Like I said, y'all are at 500 right
Ain't
now.
no
Y'all had
Twitter
a
like
good,
Nick's Twitter.
yeah. You're about to have me unfollow y'all in a second. I'm just playing.
You roll deep, but no, it's Atlanta team, and I think once Okongwu comes back, that's going to help the defense. Chris Dunn's obviously going to help the defense, so I think the defense will come, as those guys get back and acclimate into the rotation and all that. So I definitely think the defense will come.
Exactly.
But I like this team before the season, and I think I'm liking them more, so far early in the season because, like I said, Trey's getting there. Like it's crazy that he has had such a good season last year, and it's hard to see guys get better that had such a good season like Trey did. But it's possible. He's getting better. He's getting better, and we're seeing him being that leader of this team, and they got some young pieces. Like I said, John Collins is good. Horta, we got Cam Reddish. I mean,
I was about to say Reddish and Hunter. I think you'll see Hunter tomorrow. You'll be impressed by the improvements that he just made overall. He's a lot more confident. They do a lot of pick and roll at the top of the key with him and Reddish. He gets the ball, he puts his head down, he gets to the basket. And
defensively too, man, he's a dog.
Last few games, I think every game besides maybe one, he's been above 20 points a game, and he's been solid, defensively as well. Like him and Reddish have been kind of like known for the defense, but their offense is starting to flourish a little bit. So them two guys, exactly, and they're both 6'8", 6'9". They're long. They can, and they can hit shots when they're in a rhythm. So it's
that Atlanta team, man, definitely a fun team to watch, and like they're really good. And I think, like you said, once you get those other guys acclimated, done, the defensive stoppers along with Reddish and Hunter, this team could be really, really special. Like, something special
Yeah,
is brewing in Atlanta, and that's just good to
have been like
build.
that for a while.
Mhm. And we see Mo, you're Miami Heat, how they be able to build teams, right? The culture, right? We talk about culture, right? When you think culture, you think Miami and the culture they have, and how Atlanta's being able to change their culture after Atlanta had some good years, right? You had you had Horford and those guys, and then get guys get traded, Teague and all that, and then you went to transition where it's like, oh man, like, are we ever going to be that team again? And then you just build and build and build. And I see with my Knicks, like there was no hope after last off season, right? We talk about this all the time. Like, that was a rough off season. Like, you struck out on everyone, and then there's just the draft didn't go the way you wanted to, and then things change, right? You know,
Mhm.
the management comes in and has a plan, and they stick to the plan, get some good players, and things change, right? Where you have more hope. So Atlanta's going off to a good start. The Knicks are off to a good start. The Miami, he's the worst out of the three. So I mean, that sucks for Mo. He's got
Hey, it's
I
all
Ohio
live
State.
good.
with it. I like it.
I got
He's
the
got
national
Just
championship coming up. I'm good.
the championship. He's
yeah,
got
I'm
his
about to
butt.
say we're still in football mode right now, so he's all good.
Wow. I'm
Mo's
not worried
still
about my Heat right now.
Ohio State is still. He's in Ohio State mode. He's not in Miami mode. So
Yeah, our season. Yeah, I'm not in Miami mode right now.
no,
I'm
no.
I'm all in. One more game. That's
One
what
more
I'm
game.
focused
One more
on right
game, then
now.
he can get back in Miami mode. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys, hopping on and talking some hoops. Appreciate you guys coming on and all that. This was fun. So before we sign off, where can the people find you guys? Jelani?
I think we lost Jelani for a second.
Jelani? All right, Mo, you go.
Oh yeah, you got me.
Oh,
Go
Oh
ahead,
yeah,
Jelani.
bro.
yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
Yeah.
Delay again.
Oh yeah. Oh
Jelani.
yeah, I'm sorry, but my fault. But yeah, definitely appreciate you guys. Talking hoops with you guys. Like I said, now transitioning to NBA season. I know it's young, but can't wait to get on and talk some more hoops with you guys for sure. And even tomorrow, like I said, when our Knicks and Heat or Knicks and Hawks match up. So, you know where to find me at Twitter. What the game means to me podcast, WTGM podcast. Facebook and Instagram. What the game means to me as well. Um, Thank you again to Chris the Prez for having me on the network off the ball. We're doing really special things 2021. Can't wait for everything that's in store for everybody's shows and the networking as a whole. Mo, it's always a pleasure being on with you, hearing your insight,
Yeah,
talking hoops
bro.
with you, and just can't wait to have more of this for the upcoming years. So appreciate it, and thank you for having me on again.
For sure, for sure. Vice Prez, where can they
Oh
find you?
yeah, bro. It's always love when we get on the show together. But just check me out Up in Flames on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I got a Facebook page, Up in Flames Pod on Twitter. Or if you want to follow my personal account, which I'm more on, Mo_Tees15. And yeah, bro, we gonna have we got a lot of big shows coming, a lot of things coming. So y'all definitely stay tuned. Off the Ball Network got a lot of things coming this way. So everybody just stay tuned, bro. And it's always lovely. Johnny, I'm tired of you in Atlanta. Chris, I'm tired of you in New York. Like, I was just tired of everybody. But no, man, it's always love when I get on with y'all, man. So yeah, I appreciate you for having me on, Chris.
No doubt, no doubt. Appreciate you guys, like I said, once again for coming on, chopping it up for a little bit, talking about the early stages of the NBA. Looking forward to seeing, how the rest of the year goes. I'm sure we're gonna be doing more of these lives and talking more hoops as the year goes on. But so far, craziness in the NBA. A lot of blowouts, a lot of guys, playing high level basketball, a lot of surprises, guys struggling, but always interesting, stuff going on in the NBA. And of course, can't wait to see the Knicks win by 20 tomorrow. It's going to be fun. We're going to shut
Yeah.
down Trey. It's just what we want, right? We want
Yeah.
to see that. You're going to see me acting crazy on Twitter. Mo's going to
Oh,
love
so
it.
yeah, like just normal Nick things that should be happening. But
Normal Nick
we'll
things,
see.
because it's either you're going to see us go real crazy or you're going to see us go crazy the other way.
Right.
There's only two things of Knicks Twitter. It's either we overreact, both good and bad. So we're going to be a lot of overreaction. Julius Randle's going to either we're going to love him like we have been so far, or we're going to hate him tomorrow. So that's Knicks Twitter for you in a nutshell. So looking forward to it. But that's Jelani Brown. That's Mo Upper Flays. I'm Crystal Broad. You can find me on social media, Off the Ball Pod, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Appreciate everyone who chimed in, who's listening on the Off the Ball Pod Facebook page, on YouTube, and on Periscope. Appreciate everyone for listening. Tune in. Make sure you go follow Jelani, TikTok superstar. Make sure you follow our
I had to get away one more time.
our Mo Ohio State guy. He's fancy. I can see the Ohio State in his eyes, like he's just bleeding. You can't wait for that game
Crimson and white
coming up. But like I said, once again, appreciate you guys for coming on. Make sure to go to offtheball.com, offtheballnetwork.com for all of your sports needs. Check out the Off the Ball Network Twitter page, Facebook. Go check that out. Like, subscribe, whatever. Just appreciate any support that's there. Check out us on Teespring. We got merch, Off the Ball Network merch on Teespring. Check that out. Check out all the sponsors that we have. Go check out the page. Look at all our sponsors. We got Dad's Watching Sports just added to the network. They're about to go on in a little bit. So excited to have them on. And that's it, guys. Have a great night. And like I said, we're gonna probably be back on tomorrow with our pregame for the Hawks and the Knicks. So that's gonna be fun. So on that note, guys,
ready for this hot tub.
Yep. Jelani's gonna be real irritated with me, either good or bad, with me and Nick. So and the Hoopers too. We got the Hoopers coming on tomorrow too. So looking forward to that. Everyone be safe. You two be safe, all right? And I'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Everyone be kind to each other and don't be racist.
Don't be